Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good, as always. And today, we're going to talk about something cool, as always. And hopefully, that will bring you some insight into have more clarity in understanding how this reality works, as always, and how to genuinely get the real success and not to get caught into this loser's wheel. Okay? All right. So, I talked about this before. Um, you can call this a Luciferian approach to life, and that is about seeking pleasure, right? And like I said in the previous video, if you do anything to pacify your ego with pleasure, not the body or the mind, which is different, then you are engaging in something, participating in the evil. That is actual evil. Okay, it has a scale. It can be a minor, but it's always functioning on that premise of um, superiority, which is domination, and then um, inferiority, which is submission. Okay, so it functions on these in the world of duality, and the world of duality only is applicable to the mind and body, not the soul, not the heart. Okay, why am I saying this? As an example, for example, um, there's a lot of evil stuff that is coming out into the surface that now people are processing, where they before they would be denying existence of this thing because it cannot be imagined for this evil to exist, um, partially from the denial of their own evil that they possess. Ego is evil. Like I said, any kind of action that you do to pacify your ego with pleasure is an evil act, right? Watching porn, masturbating, that's an evil act. And then doing these atrocious things that right now in media is coming out to the surface, which is like any kind of form of subduing the innocence, sacrifice, and all this nonsense. That would be the extreme evil. And it's called worshiping Lucifer because that's the Luciferian way of moving in life. That's a Luciferian way of forcing those opposites, which are beliefs, which is always says yes, no, belief and a doubt. Doubt is just another belief. You see what I'm trying to say? But for the sake of, let's say, belief would be a positive, doubt would be negative. But that's what may exist in your consciousness. And as long as that exists, you're going to be seeking out um, somehow to connect those two through the external means. And only the alchemy can weave it back together into the truth, innocence, and love first. Before then, it goes into the fulfillment of your desire through the internal means, not external means. Okay, so that's the Luciferian way. It's a dark way, it's a vampire way, many words to describe that. Matrix way, if you will, of evil. That's how you gain power. And that's real power. Because why do you gain power this way? Because you get a limited a state of consciousness which is close enough to the coherence through the forced means, pleasure, which is temporal. This is why it has to be repeated. But once it's done once, you have some, like afterglow effect. And during that afterglow effect, a person, whatever they are desiring, they contributing that passion energy towards that because you manifest with passion. Passion is the fuel of the creation. And so the evil way, the Luciferian way, is to pursue the pleasure, and out of that pleasure, from the pleasure from the or passion from that external pleasure, then you manifest the next thing, and this way you gain power. So as you can see, the matrix power is all evil. This is why uh, there's almost no understanding that there is a form of good power that exists, and all power sometimes is seen as evil, but not necessarily. There is a good power, and the good power is way more powerful than uh, than the evil power. Way more powerful, because, like I said, Luciferian approach of passion is limited. It cannot connect fully at the center. This is why it just gets sort of like lit up with the pleasure for a little bit, and then it goes back into pain again and needs to be lit up again. And so there's this temporal approach. This is why the regular sacrificial things that they have to do on a big scale and a smaller scale, right? And so then everybody falls into this hierarchy of evil. And if you want more power in this world, you have to be more evil. Okay? So hopefully I'm describing this, how not to do this, because this functions on the premise that you do nothing with your beliefs. There's one belief says, I want that, and another belief says, but how it's going to happen, right? There's a belief and a doubt, those two opposites, and they don't really reconcile, and through the some sort of artificial means and forcing those two together, you get that dark way of passion. So the right way would be is not to have any beliefs at all. You see, this is why the approach that I'm is talking about, which is right approach and the correct approach in the right direction, it's not about cultivating your beliefs, because every belief will have a doubt, right? You don't need a belief to manifest something. In fact, if you play this game on a belief, you will find it very quickly that you may manifest something. It will have like a temporary satisfaction, and it will leave you empty again. And then it's gonna. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, that's the same nonsense wheel you may end up being caught on if you manifest through the belief. The correct way of doing it is whatever you desire, when you think of it or imagine it, some form of negative feeling may arise. That is that disconnect. Rather than forcing it and keep on imagining through willpower, you go exactly where that stemmed from, that incoherent feeling. And then you begin your alchemical process by placing and going in deeper and deeper and deeper into that negative feeling. Keep on placing your attention and surrendering into the awareness. And this way you can, that judgment, that desire for the superiority or inferiority that sometimes stem from there, it's sort of burning. It's burning up into the void. It's akin to this like time, space, matter spiraling into the void of black hole and charging the neutron star in the center. Okay? Later being beamed as a gamma ray burst to be projected into the new matter that's going to solidify in the galaxy and form a new star, which in this case would be your desire. Okay? At the same time, that new star is not only your desire, but you also, because you don't come separate from the fulfillment of your desire. It's a package deal. You are that also. Okay? And so every time you fulfill your desire, the star is born, so to speak. That is the correct way of doing it. You want to weave that duality back into unity, and from there when you already have those feelings that that desire would have brought you through the alchemy, then, only then, without creating any kind of belief, you don't want to create any kind of belief. From those feelings, you just simply enjoy whatever may arise in the form of imagination, right? There's no specificity in terms of like, a specific person, or like there's there might be whatever the desire you have, there's a quality there, and it's sort of from that quality into the form, there's that transition. Okay, let me explain. Okay, I don't know if you I hope you have had lucid dreams. In a lucid dream, when you intend something to happen, at first there's just only the quality, until then it solidifies into the form. And then when it solidifies into the form, it may already have a lot of details that you have not really specified, and how the fuck all these details that are there, that you kind of already enjoy them, and how would your consciousness know what exactly what you want? Because it does. You don't have to specify things. In fact, if you specify, you may go back into the belief game. There's a completely different approach, and it's more like from the alive state of being. You projecting the form that you enjoy in the real time, not to get it right. You don't leave this hanging. You don't create a belief in this process. Okay, because if this, what sometimes people call critical factor, which is the dividing factor that is only necessary in logics and skills and functional memory and knowledge, um, it is useless in this case. Not only useless, it is actually, like I said, it's creating beliefs. This is what you don't want. You don't want to destroy one belief and then go back in creating another. Okay, um, you don't want to have any kind of beliefs, and the belief would be like that stuckness, right? Like that. Sometimes people call attachment. Attachment is when your consciousness is divided in the soul, and there's this belief and a doubt. Okay, you don't want that. It's not necessary to have that at all about anything that you want. You're supposed to have like that quality of awesome being about that thing, and you can use your imagination whenever you need, for the sake of it being the means to an end, or the ends to the means, so to speak. What I'm trying to say here is that imagining from already feeling good does not create something like, well, I hope that's going to happen. As soon as you say that, that's a belief, and there's going to have a doubt about this. And there's like, you are pressing, the accelerator and the brake at the same time. You don't want that. You don't want that critical factor to be involved in the process at all. And if it starts being involved, there's the alchemy thing that you have to do again. Burn it all up. Okay? That would allow you to have freedom and no attachment to the outcome, as sometimes people call it. Why don't you have that attachment to the outcome? Not because you're pretending not to have it, or you're creating another belief that you don't. You don't have attachment to the outcome because in the present moment you have the state of fulfillment. The enjoyment that would give you is already there with you. That eliminates attachment. And then whatever form that enjoyment may want to take in your imagination, you just go from there and imagine whatever you want for the sake of enjoyment, not to make it happen in 3D. You see what I'm trying to say? Because then, as soon as you try to make it to happen in the 3D, you're grabbing hold of it, and then you're introducing critical factor and splitting that truth into the belief and doubt again. Okay? um, and in this type of very freeing state, it is enjoying everything that is happening to you, but you're not grabbing anything. It's very peculiar because once it's happening and you're enjoying it, the mind may come in and say like, well, how do I sustain it? How do I keep it more? And that's exactly what prevents it from keep on happening, keep on continuing. It's just that, again, intervention of logics into the world of logos. You just have to train yourself not to go into that, and it is a type of training where, and you leave no trace. Therefore, you have no ego. You have no beliefs. You don't function on the beliefs. The only thing that's static is there as a memory, as a knowledge, which happens automatically as you live your life, because life is all about creating and playing. As you delete the beliefs, what is left there are principles and skills, right? You burn up the things that are burnable, and what's left over there is going to be timeless principles, which are applied on any kind of um, game of life, and skills that are temporal. Something temporal are skills, something infinite are principles. And that's how I separate those two. The difference between principle, that it is timeless, and the skill, it belongs to time. Okay, but you're removing the belief, you're removing the doubt, and what's left there, principles, skills, and truth, or the colorful state of being out of which any kind of desire springs out. Okay, so it's a very peculiar being. I don't know how else to describe it, but anyway, most of the time what's going to be very applicable to you is alchemy. It's going to be, most of the things is going to be about um, arising of that negative feeling, placing your attention and awareness and dissolving it. About anything, it seems to me that there is a general alchemy, like I mentioned before. Again, I'm just theorizing and I'm seeing what I'm seeing inside my consciousness. And then there's specific alchemy. Okay, not necessarily about specific. I don't mean, for example, in a specific person. I think manifesting specific person is playing, um, you know, a puppet master game that is has a danger of going into the evil, because you're messing with the system. It has to happen naturally. You are not saying that I have to have specific person, but that specificity would be about, like, the general would be is just like alchemizing the energies. Like, there's out of nowhere, like, this negative feeling comes along, you alchemize that, and that's to do with possibly like the global events in your life, and it could to do with the entire planet, the entire game. And then specific would be, what is your specific desire? Most of the time people want to have a nice place to live, the job that they're passionate about, and the relationship that they're passionate about. That's usually, the most um, uh, most prevalent desires that people have. So you don't insist on a specific person, but specificity is about relationship. And if you're imagining something about the relationship what you would want to have, and if there's like a blockage arises there, that negative feeling, then you are alchemizing specifically, because that negative feeling that arises is showing you that there is existence in the belief and the doubt about that specific thing. And you want to basically smash those two back into it, like weave those two through the alchemy, through your attention and awareness, to weave those two back into the truth, which is that feeling, coherent feeling about that. And specificity is about what the relationship feels like, or what kind of activities that you do in the relationship feels like. You see, like, those are the the palettes of colors and the symphonies and the melodies of music of your soul that you are, accessing, and that is more to do with like theurgy, right? Oh, sorry. um and in a way, it is like alchemy is destructive process. You're destroying beliefs and doubts and weaving into the truth. It's a general process, and then specific process would be a theurgy. After the weaving is done, then you specify what that is, right? And so there, in that theurgical process, you can create these memory bubbles, if you will, where these states of consciousness are there, and you can move to that state of consciousness anytime you want, just for the sake of enjoying it, right? And every time you move, it may take some form, what you imagine, but nothing specific about the person, or specific even about the house that you want to have, or a car, or whatever. It's the quality of experience. And so you leave the specificity for the universe, because it knows better what you want. Because if you insist on specificity, now you're messing with it. Even if you do get that, um, it's not going to be as awesome as if you have left that to the universe, because it will always know better than your limited mind of what fulfills your soul. Okay? Um, then, thaumaturgy. That may be highly specific, and it's usually about some creative process that you want to create. And in that sense, it's about things, not people. Then you can engage in more of a specific thing, right? Because, if you're creating a piece of art, you want to decide, maybe what kind of color you're going to put there, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, um, the creative process about things, not the entire event and the quality of the event and people and all that stuff. Um, you see, that's the difference between theurgy and thaumaturgy. Theurgy is kind of soul magic, and thaumaturgy is a mind magic. And as you can see, you use thaumaturgy only after you already have alchemized the belief into the doubt. That doesn't exist anymore. You had like specific feelings that you're enjoying, and then you give it a form to these feelings. Okay? And as you're giving a form to these feelings, you're entering in in a thaumaturgy. Uh, and you can add specificity, but it only as a last thing, right? It would be, for example, if you want to visit some place in a specific place, well, okay, that's like you have to be specific. Um, you see what I'm trying to say? I hope it makes sense. You don't want to be specific about a live being. You have to let the universe to decide. And if you do let the universe to decide, then the person is going to come into your life will have made, or it would appear at least that they have made their free will choice to be with you, and they were not like some love spelled and whatnot, you see, which then would the spell just disappears, and then the realization is like, oh my god, I've been manipulated into this thing, because I didn't really decide it from my heart. But if you don't play this dirty game and you let it just come in, whatever's going to come in is going to be organic and real, and because you can't do this with love, right? Love, it has to be spontaneous and alive, and you cannot force things. That's why some people don't get it. They're so stuck on a specific person that they get, and it's all based on the pleasure, not joy. And you know, that's not love. As soon as you try to force it, you ruin it, and you go back into the ego's tantrums. Okay. All right. So there's this Luciferian way, which is an antichrist way, um, and then there's the Christ way, or a Jesus way, which is basically just a, again, just a name, the Lucifer and Jesus, if you will. They were just the depictions of the processes and the structures of consciousness. Okay. All right. And if you create something this way, right way, and you look, this may not be easy, because once you start um alchemizing, it may seem like, oh my god, it's just, keeps on going, going and going. But then you get the hang of it, and you then you get the hang of it to the point where you're like, in any situation, you even see that belief sort of like popping up as that negative feeling, and then you know that's like, if you're gonna keep on letting it go, it's just gonna say something, and it just says something, some insecure nonsense, um, which then you can say, well, that's what the person's insecurity that you're dealing with, or my insecurity, which is neither. It's just the state of consciousness of matrix that produces these insecurities. But if you just place your attention there, and you shall not pass, you burn it all up, and those thoughts do not arise. Okay. So it is being in that liminal space, in a state of being, and just enjoying the liminal space, and not really, because you don't need anything when you're in that liminal space. And then if something spontaneously pops up, some nice emotion or whatever, and then some vision comes along, just enjoy that. Poof, that's it. You already project it on the screen of consciousness, on the future screen of consciousness, and you go back into the state of being without clinging on it and creating that dual belief doubt dynamic. It just it just pops up, flashes, and goes back into the source. There's no hanging. This way there is nothing, you are not living in conflict anymore. There's nothing that can be attacked. There's nothing that can be attacked. Because if you have a belief, there's going to be a doubt, and that belief is going to be attacked. And then don't get surprised why is that belief being attacked. But if you function like that as a ninja, and any belief that arises, you just alchemize it, and don't even entertain that process. You get the hang of it, like it's something's coming up, like boom, and you can get the hang of placing that attention immediately, and going into the background awareness immediately, and just going flipping it back into the source before it even produces a thought, the negative feeling, right? And this is like a real form of listening. If you are with somebody, and they're talking, these negative feelings start arising. I mean, if you could just keep on flipping it back into the source, that's the real form of listening. Okay. And as the person is talking, you'll see that they are relaxing, 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 and no longer functioning on their beliefs. And it's all state control. So that's the game. Just wanted to say. You know, and it always wants to be, the belief will always want to be superior, right? And it's not worth it, it's not worth entertaining it. Why is it not worth entertaining it? It's because it makes you feel bad. It makes you enter the timeline that you don't really desire, some competitive nonsense bullshit. Okay. And yeah, I mean, the biggest problem is it makes you feel bad. But, right, because that superiority may give you pleasure, right? It's all about pleasure. And then if you have this belief of superiority, and then if you prove it, you get a momentary pleasure. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm the shit. And then you have that little release of pleasure, and then gets what? Back to the same negative feeling again. And hopefully eventually you end up dealing with it rather than pacifying with pleasure. And you realize that superiority or inferiority, because sometimes the feminine ego plays the inferiority game, the victim game, which also derives certain pleasure from that. You see, you don't only see that in women. Men sometimes play the game. Sometimes, like, I've seen some people go into the superiority, and then see that's not working, then they poof go into the inferiority, like playing the victim thing. They're flipping, but never staying in the center, or rarely staying in the center. But there's a masculine and feminine ego. I'm just simplifying everything. Belief is a masculine thing, doubt is a feminine, if you will. Again, you see, like, you can keep on applying. You've noticed that from the video to video, I'm using different terms. Um, I I try not to stick too much um, to the words, and a little bit keep on changing it, so you can understand that the word is just a label to the actual metaphysical process that is taking there, the process or the structure. Okay, so right, so you don't want to go into this. Oh, I have to be awesome. Awesome. It's like, oh man, no, maybe I suck. Like all that flipping nonsense. You take those two, connect it back together. Stillness, peaceful, bliss. Done. Okay, and in stillness, peaceful bliss, you sometimes people may call it, being a humble. I think that word is kind of used in a negative way, I suppose. Humble is kind of now is looked at as weak, but no, the true humility is peaceful bliss, where you don't need to be superior and you don't need to be inferior to get off on it. There's no domination, there's no submission there. There's just courage and surrender, which is power and devotion, real power and devotion. Not that Luciferian power, which is not really a power. That's why I would use something else, another name for it, not the same, because I know for me, power, the real power, is a beautiful word, and I would not attribute that word to the people who are doing evil shit to sustain it, their dominant influence. That's not power. Um, this type of cheating in a game, and how would you call that? Leverage, I suppose, but it's not power. All right, so what else I can say about this? I mean, you can practice that. Um, it, when you go into the fields of consciousness, I suppose, when you go out in socializing in social situations, like when all sorts of fields of consciousness are around you, it's a great practice because you start feeling these negative feelings like popping up, popping up, popping. Those are actually people, beliefs, or doubts that's popping up. And so this is it's a great opportunity to do your alchemical work and focus on your alchemy when you're in a socializing situations. Okay, if you can handle your own general alchemy, then you go into the social situations, and it appears to be like another level of intensity that you can alchemize. Because how do you expose yourself to these negative beliefs? Like I said, there's only one ego anyway, and if you want to keep them down, you have to socialize, right? What else can I say about this? I mean, yeah, in a way, you are um, ridding people of beliefs, which contains insecurities and contains these arrogance, right? Arrogance is actually it's a belief. It is insisting something. It is such way, even though it's not true. And insecurity is a doubt. Okay. Um, and honestly, like if you keep on alchemizing that dual process in your soul, you end up being in a state of trance. You can call that because it's not normal that thing that it used to be. This with there's this continuous thought, thinking, and doubting going on, believing in something. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, I believe in this, I believe in this, and then next moment the doubts coming along. It's like, oh my god, maybe I don't believe in this, and all that nonsense, right? The critical factor is no longer functioning there at the soul level, and there's just only this just enjoyment and being it's there, and you are in a state of trance, positive, coherent state of trance. While you're being in a state of trance, you're still operating things in a skill world, right? And but silent and quiet inside you. And as is needed, you are applying the skill as needed. And that's when that critical factor is necessary to discern things, right? That's when it's necessary. Something is and isn't, right? The skill specifically says that is that, this if then type of mentality. It has to be done in this way, not that way. That's a skill or a habit or is what I'm trying to say. And that's perfectly fine. That's when the where the correctness exists. Because, for example, in a technical manner, like any kind of move that you do, whether it's like a dance or martial arts, there is a technical side of it. It's like, well, that's very technically sound that it was done. But then there's another state of being quality, which is includes the timing, the feeling, the everything, the quality of that is not really measurable. That's the art side of it. That is actually more important. Sometimes the technique may not be that great, but if the feelings surrounded the result of it all appears so much better. You see, and that is true art. art is something that is not really uh, belonging to the temporal reality. That's real art. It's belonging to the infinite reality, which is alive. It's always changing. It has its own ever-changing boundaries and ever-changing openness. Okay. Again, hopefully, that just gave you more clarity. Do not participate in a world of beliefs. Anyone who's just programming you into believe, also instilling you doubt, they're not your friends. You do not need any kind of belief. You don't need to believe in anything. Okay? But you do need to. It's not like you don't, other people say like do nothing. Also wrong. It's nonsense. Your attention and awareness is necessary and you are in control of it. It's not about doing nothing. There are moments you could say that you're not actually doing anything. You're just becoming aware and attentive of that negative feeling until it you know does what it wants to do, until all the labels kind of move away from it and becomes coherent and an awesome feeling. Okay. But that's not doing anything. You see what I'm trying to say? This is why, sort of like, if you get this, then everything else is nonsense. Okay? This is not acquired through the beliefs. It is the process of destroying beliefs. Okay? And it's also a good practice to function in the world with no beliefs. There's this strange there's this strange connecting with other people that it's very alive and spontaneous and very familiar at the same time, uh, on the heart level, on the soul level. And then there's that mind and body level, which functions separately almost. What I'm trying to say that there's no opinion, because opinion is just another belief. You have no opinion about the person ever at any point. You give a you give an opportunity for the person to be alive. Okay, because man, I've seen it time and time and again that a person functioning from their ego is a completely different person functioning from their soul. It's just, and who are they then, right? They're definitely not their ego. Ego is just appearing as a coping mechanism given the fact that the alchemical process was not handled. Okay? And the specifics are left in the world of specifics, and generality is left in the world of generality. And you appreciate the quality of being in people, regardless of specificity. And you let specificity take care of itself. Because whatever your mind needs, whatever your body needs, That's a specific part, and that will be taken care of automatically by the universe. You don't have to insist on that. Because when you believe that you want something, it's not what you really want. And you get it, and then you're like, okay, I thought I really wanted this. Why don't I feel fulfilled? Because that was a belief that wasn't really what you wanted. But if you let that go and you just enjoy the quality of being with occasional imagination for the sake of imagining and enjoying, everything else is sort of like undetermined. It hasn't solidified in things. You allow the spontaneity to be there, but you also give a little bit of form with no beliefs. You just project it on the screen, and that form is already being imprinted, and it's coming your way, but it's going to be delivered to you in a very spontaneous way. And that's the art. That's the art of how to use consciousness in this game of life to get anything you want, despite all the challenges that are out there. This overrides everything. This overrides everything. Everything. You don't function on the beliefs, like I said before. There's nothing to attack. No one can, like, sort of like, attach to you, or drain your energy, or you feel like you're being attacked, because you don't live there anymore. You're like a ghost. And if people are trying to attack you, or like send you like some negative juju or whatnot, there's nothing to attack. It goes back straight to them, and you don't even have to um, engage in anything. But if it is going, and it clicks, and you feel like you're being attacked, then that's belief. Immediately, poof, put it on the burner, burn it into the void, done. Empty again, feeling peaceful and blissful. That's your true identity, not a belief system, but this magical quantum system, if you will. And the only reason you may not be happy with what is in this moment and want to leave this place, because I had a comment, someone said that I want to, there's this like feeling nostalgic to something, right? And that nostalgia exists because what you're missing timeless, timeless, timelessness, infinity. That's what's missing. Because if there is that quality of infinity, wherever you are in this particular moment feels like home. And when you're touching that infinity and you're still being in the temporal reality, it's very clear that there's nowhere to go. Um, that the way reality works is that all the time, space, and your locations and everything is just a projection that you're just projecting from that source, and you're there, and you can't go anywhere, and you can't disappear. You're always there, and always will be. And anybody who you're connected with is always there, always with you, always been. And you're like with those virtual helmets playing this video game, and every time when you become aware, it's like, oh my god, I'm playing a video game. Then you're aware that there is no separation between you and your loved ones, and yet there is a separation in this game. And this is where you want to live. You already live at home in your heart, and then in some sort of like a strange environment in your mind and body, and it's perfect. It's perfect. And if you have any concerns, like, well, how this is going to, like, fix the world, and it's going to fix the world. This your state of being is affecting the world, and it is being fixed. It takes a little time, but it's your reflection. Like I said, I even have a theory that if you really, really alchemizing everything at the deepest level, that black hole in this galaxy that we belong, Milky Way, and the neutron star in the center are in coherence with you, and you are basically the fact that you are being coherent, that center of the universe becomes coherent in has a different type of effects on everything in that universe, including the sun, including the planet. It has to work like that because it's a projection of your consciousness. It's very interesting. It's like the consciousness created the environment, which is consciousness, and there's an appearance of the small consciousness being in the big consciousness, but the small consciousness and the big consciousness is exact same thing. Your small consciousness changes, your big consciousness changes, which is the world. And you may say, well, wait, like, how can, like, one person consciousness to be able to affect the entire environment, the entire planet, or even the galaxy? That's kind of strong statement, right? But it can, and it does. It carries a lot of weight. Okay. Oh man, oh man. Anyway, 53 minutes already. All right. Hopefully that clarifies things. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.